Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for being here, even though it was a very last minute planning. But I feel like when it comes to Divrei Torah and spreading the words of Torah and learning together, Hashem literally like finds way to make it work for us and just on opens the door for us to be able to do what we need to do to spread the words of Torah and learning together, which is extremely important during our time. And tonight is the last day of the American calendar. So I know, like, for a lot of people, because tomorrow is a day off, everyone has different feelings towards like what's going on, what do you do, and this whole concept of do you celebrate, do you not celebrate? And I think sometimes when people have that desire of wanting certain things, you can always look deeper in and see how you could manifest that and turn that in a positive Torah way. So if a person likes to learn, likes to gather, likes to get together, to find, instead of doing it in ways that's not L'Shem Shamayim, to find an alternative way to be able to make it happen. Because I feel like every temperament and character trait and desire and feelings we have is there for a reason. It's coming to show us something. And instead of thinking as far as becoming religious and living a religious life, it's kind of like limiting and needing to change yourself. We have to look at it as more, how can I integrate all parts of myself in creating ways to reach out to become the most godly person I can. Today, me and my son were walking on Pico, and we saw a group of women, and then some of them were there with their daughters, and we were speaking, a mom with her daughters, and I said to the mother, I said, why don't you wait so I could take a picture of you? Because they were going out to eat. And then I took a picture of them. I said, many times moms are the ones that are taking the picture. They're never in pictures. So she said, thank you so much, and please pray for them for a good shidduch. And I said, before I pray that, I'm going to first pray that your children, your daughters, should become the best version of themselves that they can be in a very good place in their life, and Hashem should help them to find their shidduch then to add on to their life. So that sense of that integration of all of yourselves coming together, not that you are less than until you get married, you are less than until you have children, and you are less than. No, within each of us, there's a sense of completeness and the potential that God has put in us. And it's very important for all of us to work on finding out what that is and how to achieve it, and how to bring that into the world. Because many times people go through life feeling this experience of less than, and they need this or that and that to complete them, which brings me back to the topic of tonight about emotional intelligence. So one of the things that many people don't understand, this concept of EQ, emotional intelligence, is something that the Torah talked to us about it from the beginning of Breshit. When God created the world in 7 days, and then he created Adam on the 6th day, and Adam said he's feeling alone. From the beginning, we start hearing about this emotional intelligence in the Torah. From the beginning, we hear about Adam tells God, everybody has a pair, but I don't. And God says, I'm going to find you as a kenegdo. And then it says that God put Adam to sleep, and then Adam woke up and said, this is flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. This I'm going to call Isha, because she's the mother of all beings. So this symbolism of the coming together and oneness. And what does God say? And then they became basar echad. So we keep seeing the repetition of this word echad. The way Torah sees the word echad is very different in the Western and secular world. In the secular world, a lot of times echad is about that I, like Ben Shapiro in one of his posts on Facebook last week said, self-love and self-this and self-that can in some ways lead into idol worshipping, because you can get so obsessed with yourself that nothing else will matter. So when we are talking about echad here from the Torah, we're not talking about that sense of echad of haughtiness. We're talking about that echad of oneness with God, not just oneness with me, oneness within me and with my God. So there's a difference there. When I am so focused about me, If I'm hungry, I'm eating whatever. If I'm this, I'm doing whatever. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the oneness that always has God within it. The oneness that before I do, I don't just act on impulse. I pay attention and I look within myself and I say, how would God want me to act on it? What would God want from me? What would constantly in our language, God would be part of it. So that echad is one of the most essential factor that can either make your children or break your children, which kind of, if you think about the whole concept of attachment theory, which is very popular nowadays, teaches us about a secure attachment where parents and children have a good relationship. That child walks through life feeling that sense of oneness. So when people ignore them or don't, when people act one way or not, they don't fall apart. They have an essence of oneness within themselves because they know they matter. So when during infancy you make your child know that they matter, it's the greatest gift that they're going to take with them all their life. And how do you make that sense of all oneness? Again, it goes back to their feelings. Did you make space for your child when they felt angry, when they felt jealous, when they felt mad, upset, fearful, or did you shut it down? If you constantly shut it down and expected your children to live a life that's happily ever after, live a life that's always good, live a life that's always content, live a life that there was never an experience of not having, not owning, not being, you're setting them up in a world that they're going to fail. You're going like you're almost like bubble wrapping them, which is not the reality of how life is. However, if you are able to make space for all of their emotions, all of their feelings, you're giving them the biggest gift because you're telling them all of this is part of you. It's part of that echad. When you're hungry or you're feeling mad because you didn't get your food right away, when you're feeling sad about that, you're allowed to feel your feelings, but you have no permission to take out your frustration on other people. I always tell my kids, you could feel your feelings, but you cannot hurt yourself, hurt me, or break things. So whether it's madness, anger, sadness, whatever it is, you're allowed, feel it, name it, notice where you're feeling in your body. And if you do not do this with your children during infancy, then you have to spend thousands of dollars when they become adolescents and go to college and they don't know how to deal with their emotions and with somatic therapy, EMDR, and now some people are like, it's so severe that they need to psychedelic. Why? Because all of these emotions were bottled up, sent into the basement, and that this person can't access it. And I was saying in this group today, it's almost like day in, day out, these people shut down their part of their emotions. So it's almost expecting a blind person to drive. When you don't let your children have the echad, the oneness with all of their emotions, you're expecting them to emotionally blindly have relationship. How could you be blind to your emotions and have relationship? You can. In a healthy relationship, you need access to all of your emotions. Only in that sense, then you're able to create a healthy relationship. You need a combination of both. When the sense of when the sense of that echad is there, where all of your emotions, all of your feelings, they all matter to me. Sometimes you're upset, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you could be mad at me. Sometimes you could be stressed. Sometimes you could be disappointed. Sometimes, my kids, when I don't let them do something that they really want to do, they say, "Ima, I'm so mad." I'm like, I can hear that because it's true. It's not about chutzpah. Kids can feel mad when you don't let them have it their way, especially when they become teenagers. They can feel mad, they can feel sad, they can feel angry. These are emotions that they also need to learn to feel and tolerate, also into adult life, and also as they go into the real world. So you are giving them a gift by creating an opportunity for them to have those emotions. And if you're able to do that, you give them the gift of belonging, acceptance, oneness, connection, and safety, which is a yearning that every human being has. That is why do you think teenagers go into gangs, into cults, into things you would have never imagined? They would rob, use drugs, do this to what? To feel belong, to feel that oneness. A human being always wants to feel that oneness. And we know in the book of Bereshit, when Hashem tells Adam, Lo tov yihyot Adam levado. It is not good for mankind to be alone, right? If you think about it, what does that alone mean? Can you be in a family and feel alone? Can you be in a room with people and feel alone? Can you be amongst cousins and feel alone? Yes. Alone is not about just being an individual. Alone is that emotional sensation. So the first part of it is that experience of oneness with your parents and then that oneness with God. So let's say for whatever reason you were brought up in a home that you might have not had as much emotional closeness as you had yearned for or craved for or wanted. Awareness is one of the best ways to go in and clear it out. Instead of always paying attention to the people that are in your life and obsessing over convincing them of what you want, the better factor is to look in and see, where are these traumas coming from? Where are these emotions coming from? What is it triggering inside of you? What is it bringing it up for? Like I was saying in many of my videos, I talk a lot about, in my family, everybody kept telling me, you talk too much, you talk so much. So for years, I saw it as a default. I saw it as a negative thing. I felt like it was a disease. Like I don't know how to explain it. And as I got older, when we moved to America, I realized no, it's a talent. Like in college, there's speech 101, speech 102. People go to classes to learn how to speak. People take lessons to learn how to speak on the spot. It's not something that comes naturally to people. So over time, I learned to integrate it as part of me. So many things that we might have been put down during childhood could be the essence of the gifts and the talents that we have, but the people around us might have not had the space to hold room for it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It could be that your immediate family might have just not been able to take it in. So when we're able to create that sense of oneness with our authentic sense of self, this awakening of, oh my God, like I'm not that bad. I'm not this. Suddenly you have this awakening that it's okay. Those were my challenges. This is my talent. But some of the things that my parents found challenging about me might have been a challenge for them. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative thing. Just because they couldn't hold space for it or know what to do with it doesn't necessarily mean it's a challenge. It could be a talent. So being able to like look into that and focusing on the oneness. How can I create that oneness within me, within all parts of me, within this sense of self? Because ultimately, true happiness comes when you are able to be within yourself in a place, again, back to that word alone, within yourself, but yet you feel that sense of connectivity with that godly soul that's inside of you. So when you have that connection within that godly soul, you realize you don't need anything else. You choose everyone else. You don't need anyone else. You choose other people in your life. And it's a very freeing experience when you realize I don't need people. I choose people, especially when you come from infancy and you become a child and you become an adult and then you become a young adult. That awareness there was a time in my life I was an infant. I was born. I couldn't move. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything by myself. Those primitive years of my life, I needed my parents. But as I get older, I choose and I'm blessed and I'm thankful, but I need to make that shift of that trust also within myself, within the gifts God has given me, strengthening myself, creating a better connection within myself. Because I feel like that is where the bracha resides. When instead of being so dependent of not being able to make any decisions for yourself, at that constant self-doubt, that constant wonder can really be toxic and it can make you fall apart. And I always talk about, many people think children of abusive parents, neglectful parents, drug addict parents, that those children are the ones that get damaged the most. What people don't know is that the people that get damaged, there's also another group of parents that might have been excessively smothering. When parents don't have a healthy balance and are not able to create space for the child to also be able to make their own decisions, to also be able to think for themselves, that excessive smotherness can also cause a limitation of us being able to think for ourselves. So it's almost like envisioning either like excessive on top or like complete separation. But where does the echad come from? How can I raise this child to create that good sense of oneness? So when they get older and they go into the real world and they need to make decisions, they would be able to stand on their own feet and they would be able to be able to make decisions for themselves. So that if you guys can please make sure to mute your phone so we don't have the echo, please. Thank you so much. So that's where the blessing resides, where I'm able to your microphone is mine unmuted. Oh, am I unmuted? Okay. Yeah. So when I'm able to make my child know that within you resides the gift of everything. Many times my kids come and say, Ima, what should I do? What should I do? I look at them, I say, I believe in you. You can make this decision. You are much smarter than this. I know you can. You want to go through it with me? Let's go. The easy way out is wear this, do that, bring this. But what are you teaching them? If all their life you're creating that dependency on you, what's going to happen when you're not there? What's going to happen when they're in the school? What's going to happen? The other day we were somewhere and these two kids were fighting with each other. Two boys that were like ruffling with each other. And the mother said to the other one, no, you don't have your gears right now. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I told the mother, I said, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, what are you telling this kid? You're telling this kid there's no way to protect yourself if you don't have your gear. What's going to happen tomorrow at school if someone bothers them? Or if they're at the park, what are they going to do? Immediately become submissive, get beaten up, and that will be the end. Because what? I don't have my gear. But what we need to teach our children is that you always have your emotional gear within you. You always can protect yourself. You always can defend yourself. And I know you can. So when we are building our children in a way to know that that oneness, that echad is within you wherever you go, because I believe in you. This is the most important sentence that we need to keep telling ourselves and telling our children. I could be mad, I could be upset, I could be frustrated, but I believe in you. My belief in you does not change. My support for you does not change. My being here for you does not change. Whether you make me mad, angry, whether I'm feeling frustrated, whatever I'm feeling, my belief in you does not change. And when we encourage our children from a young age to go ask for what they want, anytime I'm at a store with my children, I always ask them for what they want, whether it's a cup of water or this. I look at my child and say, ask for what they want. And they say, Ima, I want water. Don't ask me. He's behind the register. I want you to look at his eyes and ask for what they want. What am I achieving of always being a voice for them? Nothing but dependency. What am I achieving by always having them go through me? Nothing but by only dependency. But what I want to create is I want to raise an adult. There's this person on Pico that my family calls him Eliyahu Hanavi. One time we saw him, he has a beard, he always looks down, he walks on Pico and gives bracha to everyone. So he saw my son, we rode together and asked him to give a bracha to him. And he said, Hakatan Gadol Yeh, like Hakatan Gadol Yeh. And I said, what a profound lesson. When we raise our children, Hakatan Gadol Yeh. We don't want to raise a katan. When you raise a katan, it will keep coming back to you for everything. Like that book, The Giving Tree, that literally raised a katan. And that katan will never succeed in life. That katan will never be able to manage it because they will never have that oneness within them. What we want to raise is the gadol. We want to raise them to become a gadol, not a katan, a gadol, to have a voice, to be able to express themselves. It's not easy. Raising assertive kids is much harder, and I can speak up for that as having, thank God, Baruch Hashem, assertive kids. But I always tell my husband, the first 18 years is tough for us until they become adults and go into the real world. But Baruch Hashem, for the rest of their life, I know they could they could kind of like make it in the world for themselves. They might file our spirit. They might challenge us to because they always have wonders, this and that. But at least, when they become older, they will have a sense of self. They don't have to keep depending on us. Many, many parents and fathers and mother, whatever, due to things they don't have in their life, what do? They excessively hang on to their children. They hang on to create meaning of life through their attachment to the children. What is that doing? Interfering for that child to create a sense of oneness within themselves. All their life, they will feel like they need you, right? Even in the Persian culture, like a lot of the loving words, if you really sit down and think about it, it's like things like بدون تو من هیچیم, like without you I am nothing, like a mother or a father might tell the child, or so همه چیه منی, you are my everything, like I'm gonna die for you, I'm gonna, like all these words that it comes from a positive place, it comes. But how is it if you have a child that's an empath, all their life they're going to carry you with them, thinking, what if I'm not home, what's going to happen to them, what if this, that they're going to be in this constant self-doubt that they are responsible for you. Our children are not responsible for our happiness. Our children are not responsible to bring meaning in our life. Our children are not responsible to kind of like be our friend, be our therapist. This is not the way children are there for. Our responsibility as parents is we do the mitzvah to bring children into this world, to raise the katan, to be the gadol, to be the pathway, the bridge, to help them go through that and help them be the best version of themselves that they can be. And with God's help, with enough love and affection, they will come back. So when I'm able to hold space for all of my children's emotions and feelings and allow them to be, I'm giving them a gift of, you are okay, you are one despite of all the feelings you have. You're not broken, you're not messed up, you're not less than because you have emotional feelings. All of your feelings are okay and welcome and accepted by me. So when I'm able to teach that lesson to my child, I'm able to create that oneness. And a lot of times I tell people, like when my kids tell me something, I say, how did that make you feel? They say, stop it with that conversation. Da, 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 da. I'm like, well, I need to know how did you feel when that happened? Like, tell me what happened. But then they go into saying, I felt sad, I felt mad, I felt this. So what we want to do is the shell that we want to get to is, what was that emotional experience you had? Like I always tell people, when your child falls, it's the same sentence, but the changes of the words. Instead of saying to your child, you are okay, tell your child, are you okay? Doesn't cost much. It's just flipping two words, but it will mean the world and it will invest in their emotional intelligence. Instead of commanding to them that you are okay, you're saying, are you okay? What happened? Then you will save yourself from not having to deal with the meltdown hours later. If you deal with it right then, you don't have to deal with it later. So when you tell them, are you okay? Or what happened? 2 words, what happened? Then you give them a chance to explain it to you, share it with you. It will go up and then it will come down. But you're making space for that emotional experience and feeling. So are we okay with people that are watching? You have any questions? You're doing okay?
You're amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. So we're going to continue, and then if at the end we'll leave more room for questions of if anyone. So then we go into how do you create an empathetic space? One of the ways that you create a sense of understanding and belonging with another human being is by what? By listening to them. When a person has a lot of emotional sharing to do and experiences to do, first, as the person that's sharing, you got to make sure your vessel has the capacity of taking it in. The biggest mistake people make is without knowing what quality the vessel, the person in front of them is, they pour into it and they wonder why did it break. For instance, when you have hot water, you will never pour the hot water in a plastic cup. Why? Because the plastic cup will melt. If you have cold water, you will never pour it in a glass that you just washed with hot water. Why? Because the cold water will crack the hot glass. So anytime before you start your medaber, before you start sharing, take a moment and see who your audience is. I don't care how they're related to you. I don't care if they're your husband, father, mother, whoever it is. You, as a wise person, got to take a moment, scan your audience. If they're not in the zone of listening to you, then go journal. Make yourself an account to yourself on your email, on your phone. I do that. And I write it when it's like surfacing up. I write it. Have one mentor, a good friend where you could share it. If the person, you notice them being stressed about other things, or you tell them, I want to talk to you about something, and they say, I can't right now. By arguing and justifying and getting frustrated, where are you going with this? All you're doing is telling, like, let's say the plastic, you got to hold on to my hot water. You got to hold on to my hot water. Then you pour in your hot water. The plastic cup melts. And who are you mad at? Are you mad at yourself? You're mad at the cup. But the cup told you, I cannot hold space for this. So when we're able to step back and realize, first, we don't own anyone. Second, we cannot have expectation of anyone. Third, we cannot control people to listen to us when they're not in the zone. So what does that teach us? You got to go back within yourself and within that soul, that part of God that's within you. You have to get into a zone of understanding that what did Yosef do? What did Yosef Hasadik do when he was thrown in the pit all by himself? What did Yosef do when he was sent into the prison? What did Yosef do when Potiphar's wife came after him, dragged his shirt, and wanted to be with him? What did Yosef do? Yosef was not married. His father was not there. What did he do? He tapped into his higher vibration of reality. Some call it sixth sense, whatever it is. But when you're able to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm above physicality, I'm above nature, please help me. I am not alone with, like kind of Ein Od Milavado, like you meditate on the Ein Od Milavado. There's no one other than you. There's no one other than you. This circumstances is supposed to teach me a lesson, but Ein Od Milavado. There's no one other than you. One thing that my cousin has taught me that's just so wonderful. She says when people like make a statement or bother her, she takes a moment and she says, thank you. I guess God wanted me to hear this right now. This is what I needed for my soul. Unfortunately, you offered to be the one, but this is what I needed to go through. So she says, whatever it is, God wanted me to go through this. I am not, in her head, I am not going to give you the credit of seeing you break me down. What do you achieve by letting the other person see they break you down? They might continue more. But instead, you take a moment and you say, Ein Od Milavado. Like you kind of like zone in, you envision yourself as yourself, and you say, Hashem, I am going to connect with that connectivity and that oneness within that godly sense with you. I always also meditate on that Rabbi Nachman song, Kol Ha'olam Kulo Gesher Tal Me'od, Gesher Tal Be'ha'ikar. So it's a beautiful song that the whole world is nothing but a narrow bridge. And our whole mission in the world is what? Not to be afraid. And this comes up in different things from different people. We keep getting nudged. And the ultimate oneness is when you're able to get to a place where people's reaction and feedback about you does not break you. Who doesn't get broken? A person that's solid within themselves. A glass that's fully solid, when you pour wine, when you pour water, it doesn't come out. What comes out? A glass that's cracked. So you cannot blame the wine for it coming out. You need to work on getting yourself to come into a place of oneness. Because when you get yourself to come into a place of oneness, you're no longer at the mercy of other people. Again, this is much, much easier said than done. We are all working on it in different ways. It's not easy at all. Do not I am not saying that I'm a master in this. I have my own cracks. But when you own it, when you own your cracks, when you own your shatter, when you own your stuff, then you don't give them the upper hand. It almost reminds me of one of the hostages was this old lady, one of the first ones that was taken. She looked like she was in a golf car with a pink blanket around her. and she was smiling as they were driving. And the whole time I said to myself, is this person demented? Like, why is she smiling? Like, she has these four like people around her. And when they did the interview with her, she said, I told myself they took me. I told myself they burned down my house. I told myself at the end they might even kill me, but I'm not going to let them think they broke my spirit. Let them think I'm demented. Let them think I'm checked out. I will not let them think they got me and they're breaking my spirit. 75-year-old woman. She was smiling. She was literally smiling. They were screaming at whatever. She literally, you were like, so what did she do? Again, she went into a higher dimension of existence. She did not let the circumstances define her. I will not be defined by my circumstances. I think this is like the biggest lesson I've learned about Yosef, about Rachel, about Dinah, Yosef's wife. None of them let the circumstances define them. And that is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself, is owning your emotions, being able to name your feelings, know where you're carrying it, create that oneness with it, and be at peace with it. That is when the higher level of existence comes from. So, and tonight when I was reviewing my talk with my very, very dear friend, we were talking about the prayer of Shema Israel, and we learned in our Parsha class with Mora Beruria that when Yaakov was passing away, and Yaakov was worried, are you going to take me with you? Are you going to leave me here? What's going to be with me? And she said that his children together said the prayer of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Don't worry, God is, because Yisrael was another name for Yaakov. They told Yaakov, listen, we are within that one God that you believe, we believe, and we will do what you asked us. So we were talking about the word, the echad. First of all, like I said, how do you offer empathy to someone? First is you listen to them. And then that will lead into the echad, the oneness. People who have emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, they're able to hear people out without getting defensive, because they're able to hear you out. But this is not a gift that's given to everyone. We have to understand this. This is not age-based. It is not based on your financial status. It is not based on your culture. It is what you were exposed to. If you were brought up in a home where emotions were important, then you're able to relate to it. If you were brought up in a home where emotions were kept in the basement, then you don't have as much access to it. So this is a reality. It's a gift not everybody can handle. When you talk to people and they get defensive and they get activated, they don't know how to deal with it. It's a skill that they don't have. It's like a blindness. It's like emotional blindness, mamash, like your blind spot. There's emotional blind spots. Some people struggle with emotional blind spot. It's like absent emotion. It's just they don't even know how to act. Because when, as an infant, if your mother wasn't able to hold space for your sadness, for your this, for your that, how in the world are you going to be able to do that for yourself or another person? If your mother fed you, took care of you, but never was able to say, what's wrong? What's going on? All these gaga goo goo things that you see, and sometimes it's funny, you are growing the baby's brain. When your baby is 2-3 months and they're looking at you, you think they don't have verbal, they are processing everything. The baby's brain is making the most neurons in the first few months of their life. So when you leave them in front of a tablet, in front of a wall, you'll never be able to go back to do that. But when you look at them, you look into their eyes, you ask them, how are you? You tell them, I'm going to change your diaper now. You speak with them. Everybody used to always laugh at me, but Baruch Hashem, our kids, besides the fact that I'm very talkative, I already said that, but our kids were very talkative at a very early age because we always talked with them like adults. You know, people would always laugh at me. Why are you asking them? They're only 4. I'm like, what do you mean? A 4 is a whole child, like a human being. I can't decide that. I have to ask her, do you want this or do you want that? So when you're able to give that to your child, you're building their emotional intelligence, and the younger you are, the further it goes. So we were saying how the word echad, the letter dalet is the last letter of the word echad, and the word dalet is the number 4, numerical number of 4. So we were thinking, like, first of all, 4 is reminding us of the 4 corners of the world. That's one thing. And another thing we were discussing is that there's 4 primary emotions. These are the main, like, frontliners of emotions, which is fear, joy, anger, and sadness. Usually anger is known as like more of like a bit secondary. So meaning when fear and sadness and failure, there's no space for it, you go into anger to demonstrate it. So you go into demonstration because you're not able to verbalize, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling nervous. Do yourself and your children a favor, especially your sons. Don't ever tell them, boys don't ever get afraid, boys don't ever cry, boys don't feel sad. You're robbing them off of a reality of an emotion that they need to have. If you want to raise an emotionally balanced, healthy adult and a man, allow them their feelings. Don't rob them off of their feelings. They have a right to know a boy can feel sad, a girl can feel sad. This is part of our emotion. So we did this really nice breakdown that I wanted to share with you guys. So we divided up. This is all made up. I have no source for it. Just a disclaimer. I do not have any source. It was just a thought put together. We divided up the 4 emotions to the 4 imahot and like the lessons we learned from them. Again, what I'm sharing about the boys is a lot of men during childhood were never taught to be okay with their sadness and failure and disappointment and fear. So when they become adults and they go to work and they're not making enough money, instead of having the emotional maturity and coming and telling their wife, listen, I really don't know what to do. I'm concerned, or like kind of like heart to heart talk. I'm trying. So what do? You spend money on the credit card again. Bah, 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 bah. What do they go into? Tantrum and rage. Usually in most homes with boys are accepted, but sadness is not. So what are you doing? You're teaching your little boy that when you become an adult, when you become a father, when you become a husband, that's okay, but this is not. Horrible. We know anger is on the same level of avodah zarah. It's much better, let your boy have their sadness. You see the tears in their eyes, ask them what happened. Their friend took their ball. Don't tell him you're a boy, you're crying over a ball. How could you do this? That is his feeling. That's what he's feeling. Don't make him hide it into the basement. Then they become the teenagers and adolescents that will go into drugs, into weed, into psychedelic, mushroom, whatever it is, to gain that connection with their feelings again. When you steal that from them, nothing can replace it for them until they go through these things. Because now you're telling them sadness is bad, failure is bad, hopelessness is bad. Who said? These are part of life. An emotionally in tune, mature person has access to all of their feelings. That's how it needs to be. That's how it needs to be, that we're able to have access to all of our feelings at all times. And when we're able to hold space with that, there will be no separation. We will have echad with God all the time. Because you say, even when I'm feeling sad and mad, I know God is watching over me. I feel my feelings because of the circumstances, but I know God is always watching over me. It's the greatest gift when you're able to let your children have a comfortable feeling with their feelings. So again, we're going to go through the 4 main feelings. Disclaimer, this was made up. I completely made it up. I have no source, no Rashi, Rambam, Onkelos, none of that. Maybe whoever watches these videos could go find the sources, but this is totally made up. So we're going to start with sadness because of the Parashat Vayichi that we just passed. Who taught us about what do you do with your sadness? Who taught us about how do you cope with your sadness? What do you do with it? We connected it with Rachel Imenu. And Rachel Imenu, till this day, we say what? When things don't go your way and you don't get what you want. And what did Mama Rachel tell God? I will cry for my children. Who did God have mercy for Bnei Israel? When Rachel Imenu went up. Who taught us about that oneness despite your husband, love of your life, marrying your sister and this and that. I mean, a woman, God forbid, unfortunately experience an affair and you're broken, and now here your husband goes in front of you, marries your sister, like sadness on another level. Within her sadness, she still held it all together, didn't want to embarrass her sister, gave her the password, and let her not be embarrassed, but she carried her sadness, right? And what? Her husband loved her. She never gave up believing that her husband loved her. He had 3 wives. She knew he loved her. He had this and that. She knew he loved her. They all had children and she didn't. Was she sad? Obviously. She waits for this husband. He works for her. Her father tricks her. She still believes in God and that her husband loved her. So despite feeling that sadness, she knew in her heart. And whose mother was she? Yosef. The highlight, the master plan of sadness. Why do I say that? Because he was one of the most comfortable men, emotionally mature on a whole other level, where he was very in tune with his sadness. He was very comfortable. I'm going to tell my daughters, when you date, ask the guy, do you cry? And if he says, I never cried in my life, run from him, because he's angry. He expresses his rage. If your single girls are watching this and you ask a guy, have you ever cried in your life? And they say no, run for your life. When do guys start dating? 25, 30. How could you go 25 and 30 years of your life never feeling sadness in your life, despite the challenges and up and down? Whether it's a grandparent passing away or this passing away, of wanting something and you didn't get, for me, that's a red flag. Girls go on a date and tell the guy, do you get angry? Obviously, he's going to say no. What? He's going to tell you, yeah, I get angry. Actually, I punched the wall. Actually, I broke 2 windows at my house, 3 at that house. Come on. You ask people, they're going to say that to you. The better way is, when you're angry, what do you do? Don't ask people, do you get angry? The answer will be no. Most people, especially guys, are trained to tell you no. And what you want to know, the way you'll know if he gets angry, is ask him if he gets sad. Ask him if he cries. Ask him if anything has made him sad. 30 years on Tisha B'Av, you never cried once? 30 years, you heard about the balagans in Israel, you never cried once? Let's say 25 years old, never cried once? So what did you do with all those sadness? What did you do with all those cry? You probably released it with anger and rage. This is my assumption, because emotional reaction is very normal. If nobody gave you space for your sadness, most likely you are using anger and rage as an outlet. So Yosef, we hear about him, about his bechi, about the cry of Yosef, more than 15 times, 15 or even 20 times. Yosef bechi when his mother passes away. Yosef bechis when he sees his brother. Yosef bechis when his father passes away. He kneels down and puts his crown down and holds on to his father. Sorry, when Yosef sees his brother Benjamin, they say he sobs so loud that the whole Mitzrayim wakes up. You come and tell someone, tell me about the prophet that's the strongest. Imagine how funny this sounds. And you go and tell him, we had this prophet, his name was Yosef. He sobbed like a baby so loud that the whole Mitzrayim woke up. How impressed would you be? They suggest a guy to you that they tell you he could cry so loud that they made the whole Mitzrayim wake up. Would you see this as a good thing? You'd be like, what's wrong with him? He's such a mama's guy, like this whole American, mama's boy. What about mama's boy? Yosef was in tune. Yosef felt his feelings during a loss, during a death, during a reunion, during an awareness. And what was so beautiful, I think it was in last week's Parsha, that he even taught us about affect regulation. Yosef cried, Yosef was sad, he goes to the other, this is just so beautiful. Yosef goes to the other room after he sobbed, washes his face, get himself together. This is like a verbatim, this is not a commentary. Gets himself together and comes back, right? Who did Yosef do that with? Who did Yosef do that with? Yosef didn't have any person at the moment to do that with. So, can you give me some water? Yosef didn't have anyone to do that. So what did he do? he got in tune with that inner side of him that had to do with his connectivity with God. So he felt his sadness, he felt all those emotions. Here are these brothers that sold me and now are coming back because there's famine and they want food from me. He could have gone into so many different emotions, but because he had such a oneness with God, he never judged them based on what's happening to them. Excuse me 1 second. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niya b'dvaro.
Amen.
So what does that teach us? That Yosef never judged what's happening based on the circumstances. He put everything beyad Hashem, right? Beyad Hashem. Hashem, there's something Hashem wants me to learn. So we connect sadness to Yosef. So next time when you experience sadness or something that comes up for you, just take a moment, put your hand on your heart and just breathe in and like share with God. Say, God, I know you do everything for a reason. At the moment, this circumstances is making me feel very sad. And tune in and meditate and talk to God and allow your body to experience the sadness. It will not drown you. Feelings are there as an awareness to teach us something. And look within you and see what comes up for you instead of like sliding it to the left, sliding it to the left. It will come back and get you. Next, we're going to go into anger. So anger we linked with Sarah and Abraham. When Sarah had why anger? Anger can be a good thing too when you're able to use it in the right way. Anger teaches you a lot of things. Anger is like an alarm system. When Sarah realized that Ishmael, do you want to say something? When Sarah realized that Ishmael could not be such a good influence, tells her husband, they need to go now. They cannot be here anymore. This isn't like working so well for us. And she was able to like express that. She was able to feel that. And what do we know about Abraham? What did he do with Terach? He went and broke all of his father's idols. He was so frustrated. He was so mad. He found godliness, but now his father doesn't believe in it. So the idols, he wanted to show his father a lesson. He wanted to wake up his father. He didn't break the idols to teach the father a lesson. It was from a place of education and information. So anger, you feel angry. It comes up for you, but see what's behind the anger. See what it's trying to share with you and what it's trying to teach you. Next is joy. So joy, we compared it to, what did I say here? Which one did we compare it? Rivka? The joy. Yeah. So we compared joy to Rivka, and this is very interesting. Joy, sameach, simcha in Hebrew is very different than the American way of looking at happiness. Happiness in the American dictionary is all about what you do for me, to serve me, to make me feel good. But joy, the mitzvah, gadol aliyot, the simchat tamid, the joy that the Torah talks about is contentment. When you truly believe in the existence of God in everything you do, you have a sense of joy and contentment within yourself. So we compared Yitzchak and Rivka to joy, that is part of the midah that came to them very naturally. And also like when Eliezer came, she saw the camels were there, but with a joy, she went over and gave the drink to all of them. My friend was telling me that the water came up for her when she was going to do Avodah Hashem. The water even came up for her, so she was able to give it even more comfortably. And Yitzchak also, when his father takes him up to like kind of give him as an offering, he never questioned it. He said, if my father is doing it, there must be a reason for it. Never doubted it, never had, worry, just went with it. And fear, we thought about Leah and Yaakov. Leah always had this fear of what if I end up not marrying Yaakov? What if I marry out? What if this? She had that fear inside of her. And not only that, she also had this fear of her husband not loving her, which is a big lesson for us. Many times people could be in relationships where they don't feel love, and they don't feel this, when they don't feel that. And there is a part that Leah says, she goes into her deeper self and says, there's a higher reason for everything that's happening for me. And she was able to tune into that. She was able to connect with that. So when you have nothing to hold on to, she held on to that branch. Because first she said, maybe if I have more kids, then he's going to love me. And then they say she came to a part that she realized that her lovingness, first and foremost, has to happen within herself and with God. That's where a solid self comes from, an authentic self. And Yaakov, from the time of conception inside of the mother's womb, what happened? Had a brother that was fighting with him. He was always fearful of him from the infancy. And then when they become older, he always had that with him, that fear. So these things are part of it. And also we were talking about, even within fear, there's different parts. There's a fear that you're afraid and you're scared. And there's the fear of yirah. When you live your life in the fear of yirah, yirat shamayim, that you know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there watching over you. I always tell my kids, do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Do the right thing even if I'm not there, because I want to be able to count on you. When you have that yirah, you don't have to worry about who's there, who's not there, because you're giving over that the right way of being and the right character of being is to know Hashem is watching you. My grandmother's used to, my mom is there, used to always say, you should marry someone that's choda tarse, not adam tarse. She used to say, always look for a guy that has a fear of God and not fear of people. And I used to always tell her, what do you mean? She said, a person that's afraid to steal because people are there. When people are not there, he will steal. A person that's afraid to steal from God, they will never steal because God is always there. So when you get to a point of knowing that God always loves you and God is watching after you and God is protecting you, you create that sense of Hashem is always with me. So as we're coming to the end of our learning, so one of the collectiveness of the oneness of the Shema Israel is to remind ourselves that even to ourselves, when I'm feeling upset or scared, to take a moment to even say the Shema Israel, and just to meditate on the Shema Israel, like you're telling yourself, Yisrael, Shema Israel, Hashem Echad. Just saying that, Shema Israel, Hashem Echad, meaning the circumstances, the situation, whatever it is, God is one and God is with me. It might not make sense to me. I might not understand it, but my feelings are real, my emotions is real, and I'm not going to let my feelings and my emotions ever separate me from God and from myself. I'm going to turn off the camera, and then if you guys have, hold on.